That's good. Take your phones off. Graves will kick off, do a few TVs, onto the radios, onto the...
My man's there at the back, innit? How are you? Do you want a box?
We'll also do a little bit for Saturdays if you wish. If anybody wants a little bit for Saturdays at the end, we'll turn the cameras off or they embargo it. And as usual, if you can just hold back any social media stuff until after Chris is finished, then everybody gets a fair shot at it. Alright, everybody okay?
All good, fellas? Chris, first of all, before we look to the weekend, you'll have seen this story that's appeared in the Daily Record regarding Ollie McBurney. Can you clear up exactly what's gone on there?
I think you've been involved in the change room as long as I have, since I was 16 till 53. You know, there's all sorts of things that get said, some serious, some in jest. I mean, I think when you look into it, the banter that the players had between themselves, I think in that corridor was 4 Irish lads. John Egan from Cork, Enda Stevens from Dublin, David McGoldrick from Nottingham, John Flake from Glasgow, and Ollie McBurney. So it's for me it's nothing. It's something that's been blown out of proportion. From my dealings with Ollie, he's as proud as he can be to be a Scottish fan. I've met him. I've met his dad. His name gives quite a bit away. And you know, one of the first things that I said to him in terms of, you know, him coming to Sheffield United was regarding the national side, and then that hopefully, you know, in producing performances for us in the Premier League will give him more of an opportunity of playing for the national side. He's played right the way through. As I said, I've spoke to his dad. You know, I've even had chats with him, individual stories when he was living in Leeds. You know, about supporting Leeds, and no, it wasn't. It was always Rangers, and it was always Scotland. So you can look at this, you know, if you want to make some of it, but for me, it's nothing. And as I said, you know, it's been involved in a change room since I was 16 and till 52 next week, and there's all sorts of things said, and people pick up on stuff, and you know we've all said stuff as well, from my point of view, in jest at times, said stuff at times where you mean it, that gets taken out of context. I think, you know, even last year, you know, we had a terrific run-in with Leeds United. It was brilliant. The 2 games that we had against them were outstanding. I had full respect for Marcelo Bielsa and his team and what he did last year. And I made a couple of comments about a couple of things that 2 of their players said towards the back end of the season. You know, and I look back at it and think, well, I should have really said that, but you know, at the time I was passionate about what I said it, and then a big thing blew up about it. So, you know, players do say things, but I've got to say I'm looking at that and at the context of what it was, and who was around it, and where it was, and there's wind-up merchants in football all the time, and players wind each other up. And as I said, I've been part of that culture, part of that wind-up culture, and I don't think everything that anybody should you know say always gets taken at face value and as serious as what it is.
So, if anything, I'm slightly disappointed because it sort of detracts from the fact that he got his first Sheffield United goal at the weekend, and he's up and running now for the club.
Absolutely, you know, he made it perfectly clear to me that he wanted to play international football when I first met, because I talked about it and how proud he is. You know, possibly, you know, as I said, we've got John Egan from Cork and Enda from Dublin, and they're really proud Irish guys. And Flecker, you know, there was obviously been talk over the last 2 years about John getting into the international squad, which he did, and I know how much that meant to him. You know, and I do believe, you know, if people don't want to play for the country, it's up to them. And if he didn't really want to go, he doesn't have to go, and he would make that perfectly clear. But I 100% believe that he wants to represent his country, has done in all previous levels, and he will do now. And I said, playing in the Premier League, scoring goals in the Premier League, which we've brought him in to do, will obviously enhance his opportunities of playing for Steve and the Scotland squad, who I'm sure, you know, will want to do well, and he'll add to that group.
What about the team news then going into this weekend and a tough-looking game against Chelsea?
Yeah, tough, but we want to be competitive. You know, this is the reason that we wanted and landed in the Premier League for every game that we play in, whether it's Bournemouth away on day one, 2 fantastic home games that we had, or going to the capital to play an historic, outstanding football team that obviously finished in the top 4 last year, and will want to replicate that under a manager who's obviously a legend at Chelsea, who'll want to match his playing career with a managerial career as well.
What about Ravel Morrison? Because he came off the bench last weekend. He started and played well in the League Cup. Is he ready for a Premier League start, do you think?
Yeah, I think they all are. And as I said, the tempo and the rhythm of the game on Tuesday night was affected by the changes, but we're caught between a rock and an hard place from myself personally as a manager, because of the importance of the game on Saturday, the importance of trying to get minutes into the players that have not played. Did I expect them to play a little bit better than what they did, possibly as a team? Yeah, but understandably, as I said, with making that many changes, you lose your rhythm. And the team that we're up against were very good, but Ravel didn't do himself any harm, as a few of the players on the night. There's a couple that missed opportunities. I think Sean Dyche said it in his press conference after the Sunderland game. He's put a strong side out. I put a strong side out, and some will always take opportunities, and some miss out, and certainly that was the case. I possibly won't tell you who missed out, but Ravel did himself, a world of good in terms of his performance. Mousset coming off the bench was good for us, and as we'd always expect, solid contributions from the likes of Jagielka, Sharp, Ollie Norwood, Richard Stearman.
Can I ask about one of Chelsea's players that you'll know through last season? Mason Mount obviously was on loan at Derby. He's started for Chelsea this time around. There's talk this afternoon that he'll be included in Gareth Southgate's England squad. Is that any surprise to you?
No, not at all. I think if you look through Derby's season last year, started off fantastically well, turned us over at their place, and deservedly so. I thought we were excellent first half, and then second half they were really good and deserved to win a tight game. He was at the heartbeat of everything that Derby did. His absence from the team through injury coincided with their worst part of the season. His introduction back into the team at the back end of the season coincided with their best part of the season, and obviously finishing really strong and getting to the playoffs and then getting to the playoff final. Outstanding player. Two of their outstanding young players had fantastic experiences in the Championship last year in terms of contributions to their specific clubs, and then obviously on that playoff final game, which I was there, one went up in Tammy Abraham, who was really good for Villa, had a fantastic season, and obviously Mason Mount, from a team point of view, it was disappointing for him and obviously Frank, but he had an outstanding season. He was definitely the standout player in the Championship for me.
And after this game, obviously there's an international break. We'll be a month into the introduction of VAR, obviously before the season starts.
Another VAR question.
Another VAR question. It seems to be the only thing everyone's talking about. But now you reflect on it 3 games in, has it enhanced the Premier League?
I'm sure it has, and it will do. Some really good decisions have been made. Some obviously subjective and objective decisions will be made in the future. It's not really affected us so far. We were possibly a touch disappointed in terms of Harvey Barnes' goal on Saturday. That wasn't reviewed for a foul on John Egan, but that's a decision that was made by the referee and the VAR in Stockley Park. Didn't think it was worth giving a foul, so we were a little bit disappointed. But that was an opinion. It would have been interesting if John Lundstram had scored late on, because obviously Ollie was in the sort of vicinity regarding the goal as well. So that would possibly be the first time in the 3 games that we would have had a decision that possibly affected the result of the game. But Kasper Schmeichel made an unbelievable save, and I think when you look at the game, that was possibly the difference. Their goalkeeper's made an unbelievable save, and the Leicester game, we've got undone with a couple of bits of brilliance in terms of a pass from Maddison and an unbelievable finish from Jamie Vardy, and obviously you've seen the goal by Harvey Barnes as well. So regarding the VAR situation, as I said all along, I wasn't, and I changed my mind, and from the traditionalist to let's get as many decisions right, and I'm sure that will be the case.
And just finally from me, perhaps the most important question everybody's wanted to know the answer to: 4 days on from Sunday,
I know he's coming. Is
the ban on talking about Test match cricket lifted?
Yeah, 100%. And you've got it wrong. I never said that England won't win. Obviously let's talk about cricket. Everybody talked about the wicket would be good enough to hold out and then get a score, and I believed it was a previous commitment, Richard, which obviously you've turned around to make something of it, as the difference between working in the Premier League and working in the Championship happens with managers.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate.
Right. Continuing on with team-related stuff, McBurney played 45 minutes the other day. I mean, how is he, and is that a nod maybe that he's going to start at the weekend?
It's a good opportunity. Yeah, he's been pushing and he scored. So I'm obviously not going to sit here and tell you my team, but he's well in the forefront of our plans going into Saturday, and he should be. We brought him here to play. He took a little bit of time getting into the team, but he's made contributions off the bench at Bournemouth and Palace, and obviously Leicester on Saturday and scoring. It's important. We've still got some minutes inside him on Tuesday night, but yeah, he's knocking on the door to play.
Norwood's been playing anyway, but he was taken off. I presume that was just because, wasn't it, the other night, for no injury reason?
You're killing me because I'm giving you my team honour, really, that possibly two of those boys, Ollie's played all the games, but, we looked at the team as well, so there possibly had to be 1/2 that had to play because of the numbers as well, and because of the opposition that we were playing against. So it wasn't 11 changes, it was 10 changes, and Ollie played an hour, which in his position wouldn't have really hurt him at all.
It's been quite the significant week though for extra options for you, hasn't it? If Morrison's come in and had a man of the match performance, Mousset's had a run out now, there's even more dilemmas to think about in team selection.
Yeah, good dilemmas. I've always said, I want problems, I want issues, I want people to be knocking on my door, I want to be challenged in terms of picking the side. I think it's easy when players don't take those opportunities, and not all of them did on Tuesday night, but there was some really good contributions, as you've said, from Ravel and Lees and Mo Besic. Consistent performances, as we talked about, from the skipper and the older boys that you would expect. Ben Osborne, I think he's been outstanding for us as well. Who's pushing for a start as well. But you want those decisions. You want people to be knocking on the door. You don't want it just to be a 12, 13, 14 man group. It has to be 20, 21, 22, and even more really, because of the intensity and the competitive aspect of the Premier League.
Changing tack, how do you assess Dean Henderson's start to the season? The reason why I ask now, Southgate's seen Sheffield United twice. He may have been watching anybody, I suppose, but whether it's for this international squad or one going forward, it seems only a matter of time, doesn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. We obviously rate Dean, and we look at the obviously goalkeepers he's up against, and of course I'm going to say that he should be right up there. And would I be surprised if he's included in the national side? No, I wouldn't. Yeah, you're right. In terms of Gareth being here, in terms of watching Crystal Palace and a couple of their players, and obviously Saturday with some more players as well. So I don't think it's been solely a scouting trip to look at Dean, but he's come through the system and he's played well for us. He's not had an awful lot to do, which is a confidence booster for us as a team. Disappointing that he's obviously picked the ball out of the back of the net twice. Didn't really have any chance with both goals, but he's been consistent. He's not had an awful lot to do. He made a big save at Bournemouth for us. He made a couple of routine saves for us against Palace, but he's done everything neat and tidy, and he's been consistent in his performances. And as I said, if he does get into the England squad, it won't only just be on what he's produced this season. It will be what he's done last year, and obviously he was an outstanding performer for us in terms of the clean sheets that he got, and obviously his performances for the under-21s as well.
It's interesting, isn't it? You were asked about Mason Mount a couple of minutes ago. There's Dean and there's a few others that are starting to come through now that have all had their development at Championship level for England and in the Premier League.
Well, definitely. I talked about it when we signed the likes of Callum, we signed the likes of Ollie McBurney, Callum Robinson, Ollie McBurney, Luke Freeman. I'm not saying all these boys are going to play international football, but they have to start somewhere. We talked about Phil Jagielka, outstanding performer for Sheffield United in the Championship, gets his move to Everton, and his career goes to the next level, and that's what our players should be looking to do. James Maddison's been fantastic now for a season and a half, and played in that Norwich side that when we first came across Norwich and first come across James as well.
How do you approach this match at Chelsea then this weekend?
Same mindset, same competitive aspect to our play, same drive and desire that we showed second half more, but in the game against Bournemouth and the game against Palace, recognising that we're up against outstanding individuals, international players, elite footballers. I keep saying, especially at the top of the pitch, but we're there to compete, we're there to get a result. It's not a free hit. I don't like that. I don't like a free hit. We want to show a consistent performance, like we have done in the first three games. And we lost a tight game last week, and we're disappointed because I think if we'd have got out the traps and been a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more ambitious first half, and the players had not sat off as much as they did first half, I believe we would have got a result. So all a learning curve as well. But we go to Chelsea. We know that they're a really good side. I've seen the results, but I've seen the performances as well, and I'm of the same opinion of the manager of that. I didn't think he was trying to spin anything on the first day. That game was a lot tighter than the scoreline reflected, and they started their last home game, against Leicester City, in real full throttle. So we have to be right from the off, but we feel that our shape, if we get the balance right between sitting in and getting our shape defensively right, but when we've got the ball being positive, that hopefully we can cause them a few problems. But we've got to do a lot of things right Saturday. We've got to defend very, very well, and we've got to make sure that we're better with the ball, which disappointed me on the previous game, because we gave the ball away to cheap play and to really good players. They hurt you, which obviously resulted in one of the goals on Saturday first half.
How much, as perhaps a difference, I suppose, having got promoted from the Championship, is about capitalising on moments in the Premier League? Because invariably all teams seem to get less. As a sweeping statement, it can be at times a bit more patient in its build-up than it is in the Championship. So when you get that chance, you've got to take it.
Big moments, yeah. And I believe when we got back to 1-1 on Saturday, that I expected us to go and kick on. And to be fair to Brendan, he made a change, and his substitutes come up and stuck one in the top corner, which is an outstanding finish. So, we need to find that little bit of quality when we need to take that score from 1-1 to 2-1. We've looked at the build-up to the goals and what we need to do to affect that. But there are small moments and tiny margins at times. So against a team that, to be fair, went to Chelsea second half and dominated the game. They didn't first half. It was Chelsea's game first half, especially first 20 minutes. But they dominated the game second half, and we dominated the game against them. So you can look at individual games. It's difficult to say, well, they did that to them, and so we should do that to them. It's not a way really to look at it. but we have to back ourselves, and if we do get a result, it won't be the biggest result that we've ever got, or the biggest shock in football. So we have to back ourselves, we have to believe in ourselves, but we certainly respect the opposition, what they've got at the top of the pitch, the history, the manager that they've got, who undoubtedly wants to be, as I said, just as successful as a manager as he was as an outstanding player for that football club, and wants to carve a reputation. And I think when you look at managers, you talk about managers players destined to be managers, as you would say. I think Frank was obviously always going to be one of those.
Timing-wise, it's a coincidence, but there are 8 English managers now in the Premier League. In this idea of the global game and foreign ownership, how pleasing is that there's this group of you all doing it on the biggest stage?
Well, I can only, I can't affect what happens at other clubs or the trend. I've always said there's a lot of quality in English football, from coaches, ideas, new ideas, inventions, new way of playing. A lot of good things happening in English football because how competitive it is. And I've got to say, I don't think it always comes from the foreign coaches and foreign managers. And I would say that. But there's some outstanding English managers in the Premier League that have been there for a while now. In Eddie and Sean Dyche, I've said all along, and I should imagine Frank obviously wants to be successful at a different level to possibly Eddie and Sean Dyche, and I certainly want to stick about in the Premier League, and if we do, it's because we've done a lot of things right, and the players have been good enough.
So lovely, thank you.
Money.
Just one from me. Just going back to the issue of options, particularly among the strikers, you've got strength and depth there. Do you know your best front two, or is it going to be horses for courses? Yeah,
it was going to be horses for courses, and I think it's, I've always looked at it possibly, goalkeeper and defenders. You really want to keep that settled and organised, and maybe not so much in the middle of the park, but especially at the top of the pitch. I think it's important that you have options, different options, pace, power. They've all obviously got to score goals. That's what they want to do, and we need them to do that. But we have to look at different ways of playing. Times where we need to link it up, different formations at the top of the pitch. Do we play a 10 and a 9? Do we play 2 10s and a 9? Do we play 2 centre forwards? For the majority of time here, I've played 2 centre forwards, and we have done at the start of the season, which I think is interesting and doesn't really happen a lot in the Premier League. But I think what we have got and what we try to do in terms of our recruitment in the summer is cover a lot of bases. So when we go to different situations and different scenarios, we have the ability to do that with the players that we've got.
Any more from the back? No? James?
Back to London, I know you're obviously very closely linked with Sheffield, but you did spend a little bit of time there yourself, didn't you?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. That ridiculous twang I've got in my voice is because I lived in London for 4 years, which I've tried to shake off, and people sometimes think, where did you get that from? Yeah, I did. My father's work took him to London from 7 to 10, but I quickly obviously realised that where I wanted to be and got myself back up the road pretty quickly.
So you were badgering him then?
Yeah,
to move his,
back to S2, back to Manatop Alberthorne.
Did you get involved in much football when you were there though? Or?
Yeah, it was my early years, my formative years playing at school really, from 7 and 8 till 7 till 10 and 11, then back up to Sheffield and playing Sunday League football, obviously, for a local side, Brunsmere, and playing school football in Sheffield Boys.
Can you remember which school it was?
Yeah, it was a little village school called Crockenhill, and I ended up playing for Kent Boys at under 10s level. So yeah, as I said, that's the reason for the twang, which it's not a Stuart McCall twang where all of a sudden he goes up north and he's 100% Scottish, and then next minute he's back in Yorkshire. No disrespect, Stuart, and no offence, but there is that little part of me that was South London and Kent.
There's nobody else in that team, was there? Because I know.
Yeah, it was. There was. It was a boy called Gavin Peacock, would you believe, whose dad played Keith, and Gavin played obviously for Chelsea as well. So, yeah, he represented Kent boys at that level as well.
Yeah, it's a small world.
Yeah.
It would just on that as well, though. But last season, Frank Lampard, he was, as much as everybody was talking about Frank Lampard's derby, and I mean that with all due respect, he was very complimentary after both games. Almost sort of quite fascinated with the way that you've gone about things here, which you must take as a...
Well, I've got to say, I thought they were two tremendous games. They had everything. Both games had everything. You know, I was delighted with our start at Derby for the first 45 minutes, even though I think we went a goal behind pretty quickly. The recovery was great, and to be fair to them, tactically they changed things second half and moved a couple of players a little bit wider and changed their shape a little bit and pushed us back, and we really couldn't get out. So it was a game of two halves there, which was decided by a great cross and a fantastic finish. And I thought the game at Bramall Lane was a proper game of football. Two teams that had set themselves up to go well in the second part of the season, in around the Christmas period. Nothing asked, nothing given. A tight game, a little bit of controversy in it. Well, I thought we should have had a penalty, and a couple of great goals. You know, Harry Wilson's goal, and they came charging back, and tight first half, and then sort of everything went out in second half, and two really good teams who went for the win. So, you know, as I said, it was a passionate game. It was a high octane game, intense game, and you know, as I said, you know, I know how difficult the job is. I mean, I've been in the job since I was, you know, 31, 32. So for Frank Lampard to do what he did with the pressure on and all eyes of the football world on him, and you know, you talked about Frank Lampard's derby, and it was because all eyes were on him as a manager. Whatever he did from the first game when they played on a Friday night, the first time that they played, the game was on Sky right the way through to the final. All eyes were on him right the way through, and to take a team and change the team. Changed the average age. He brought a lot of younger players in. They changed the way they played as well. They were quite a counter-attacking team, a sit-back team before, a lot older team, a lot more slower in terms of build-up, to a lot quicker team, you know, caused teams problems. And I'm sure, you know, as I talked about before, you know, they lost a few key players through injury, and especially Mason Mount at a difficult time for them, and their results dropped off. And who's to say that if he'd have been fit right the way through, you know, would they have been pushing the top two and top three? I'm sure they would. So, and as I've said, you know, when you look and people talk about managers' journeys and stuff, and you look at you look at Frank Lampard, and I should imagine that, you know, managers that he's worked for and worked under would have identified him and the likes of John Terry and Steven Gerrard, obviously, you know, iconic English footballers, as going to have a career in management. There's some that possibly think it's easier than what it is, and maybe think that, you know, all of a sudden, because I've played for England and played for top clubs, that oh yeah, well, next thing is I'll just go and take my coaching badges, and then I'll go and be a manager, I'll go and be a top manager, and possibly underestimate how difficult it is. But there's certain players that are really set out to manage at the top level, and the ones that I've talked about no doubt will, and be successful.